Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 84 of the BeerSmith podcast. It's early July 2014, and today my guest is Mr. Jake Keeler from the AHA Governing Committee, here to talk about major trends in homebrewing. Today's podcast is sponsored by the new video, How to Brew Beer with Malt Extract, which I filmed jointly with brewing author John Palmer. The video is intended for new and malt extract brewers and is available now online or on DVD at beersmith.com/DVD. Again, that's beersmith.com/DVD. And also, Craft and Beer Brewing Magazine. The second issue of this new magazine at 120 pages is packed with great advice on brewing saisons, Belgian beers, blending beers, new hop varieties, and much more. Go to beerandbrewing.com and get 20% off when you use the coupon code BeerSmith. Again, you can get your copy from beerandbrewing.com using the exclusive code BeerSmith to get a 20% discount. And finally, the American Homebrewers Association discussion forum at homebrewersassociation.org/forum. Join 22,000 other users discussing beer online. It's free to use and available also via the Tapatalk app. Again, go to homebrewersassociation.org to join for free today. This week's episode was filmed from the expo floor of the National Homebrew Conference, so I apologize for the slightly elevated noise levels. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Today on the show, I have Mr. Jake Keeler. He's joining us. He is also a member of the AHA Governing Committee. I got that right. He's a former member on Brewing TV, of course, former cast member on Brewing TV. And he currently works for the Brewing Supply Group, BSG. Which is a wholesaler, of course.
Exactly.
And it's great to have you back on the show, Jake. We had you a couple episodes ago talking about brewing a bag. I think it was, let's see here, I got it up here, episode number 77, talking about brewing a bag. And today you're going to talk about homebrew ingredients and some trends in homebrewing.
Absolutely, yeah. So, one of the things Brad had come to me to maybe give a little interview here at NHC 2014, and some of the things that have been on my mind lately are the importance of quality ingredients in homebrewing. Some trends that we're seeing in the industry that are pretty interesting that kind of may pave the way towards where we're going. And also supply chain, how that kind of factors into everything, how we sit in the spectrum with craft beer and their demand for quality ingredients as well. So,
excellent. Well, let's start with the way some of the trends in homebrewing.
Sure.
People have actually started to change the way they brew, and this is for the first time in many years, we're seeing that.
Yeah.
trend.
So I'm the chair of the industry subcommittee, which is part of the GC. And one of the things we do year after year with the AHA is we survey retailers from around the country. This year we had a 48% increase in the shops reporting. So we got a much bigger data set. One of the things of note that we've been seeing over the last 3 years is we ask a question, how many of your sales include extract? And that could be, the extract going out through a kit or
beginner kit,
a la carte,
any of those kinds of things. Yeah.
And that has continually dropped by about 10%. It's still growing, but it's really slowing down.
But it's happened in a short period of time,
in a very short period of time.
Just a couple of years.
Yep. And then on the other side, many of the wholesalers and retailers are reporting an increase in actual, malt sales.
All grain sales.
All grain sales, basically. So what we're seeing is extract doesn't seem to be as popular as it once was, while all grain is becoming more popular. Now, that can be for a variety of different reasons. You could be seeing that a lot of the homebrewers that have gotten into the hobby in the last 3 to 5 years, they're finally graduating from extract to all grain.
Right.
But one of the things we're also seeing is we think that it's an assumption, it needs more collection of data to kind of figure this out, but there's an assumption that more of the people that are coming into the hobby in the last couple of years and right now are going straight into all grain.
I think
they're
that's probably
skipping
true.
extract altogether.
Yep.
And that correlates with data that we're seeing where sales of beginner starter kits, they're also starting to slow down. So I think, but we still have people coming into the hobby. They're just not, they're not buying that 5-gallon extract equipment kit, and they're not buying that.
Jumping right into all grain.
They're jumping right into it, yep.
And I was surprised at the numbers. I think if I recall from yesterday, at one time extract was 75.
Yeah.
Even 2 years ago, it was like 70% of the market, and now you're seeing drops down to 50%.
50%.
And so it's not too hard, not too far away from maybe next year seeing all grain be the majority of the market. Perhaps.
Absolutely. I think it's going to get. I think it's going to get down to 40% next year. And I think you can kind of see it, if you come over to our booth at BSG Handcraft or go to LD Carlson or many other vendors here, we're really pushing ingredients more so than, extract now. And that's certainly our focus at BSG is quality ingredients. And we think that's where things are going. So it's an exciting thing because I think it also speaks to the demand for quality. Homebrewers want to make the best beer possible.
Now, Jake, what are some of the other trends we're seeing? People are like doing some other interesting things.
Right. I mean, if you walk around here today, you'll see a lot of new equipment, a lot of fancy stainless steel, automated X, Y, and Z. So you're seeing an increase in the level of equipment that, the homebrewers even starting off with.
Really nice equipment.
Yep. And then we've, if you check out Pico Brew, if you haven't seen that yet, you've seen the videos or gone over to the booth, that's definitely something to check out.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing a simplification.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going one way over here into this, kind of very technical.
Systems.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
But then you're also seeing a simplification where a lot of people are getting into the hobby or turning to, 1 gallon kits.
Yep.
And that's usually all grain. Or like 3 gallon brew in a bag or 5 gallon brew in a bag.
Something they can do on a stovetop.
Absolutely. So that middle area of, making beer from extract kits and even, your traditional 3-vessel all grain method that's the area that's starting to shrink.
I started doing more brew in a bag.
Yep.
And this winter when the weather was so bad and it was like 0 degrees out, I said, I got to brew something. So I was brewing on the stovetop, mini brew in a bag batch, mini extract batch, whatever I could get done,
Exactly. And we're seeing a lot more people get into that as the entry point.
Yeah.
They're starting with the 1 gallon kits because those 1 gallon kits, they're out there. They're in the mass market. They're being sold at Whole Foods, at Williams-Sonoma. So
well, that was another one I wanted to ask you about. I had the president of Mr. Beer was here a little while ago, and he was discussing. They actually they have brought literally hundreds of thousands of people into the hobby with those inexpensive kits that you mentioned at a lot of the popular retail stores, top retail stores. And so one of my questions is, how can we bring some of those 1 gallon type brew, brand new brewers who may have bought a kit like Mr. Beer off the shelf into the larger homebrewing hobby?
That is $1 million question. The AHA did a survey with a third party called First Resource, and they estimated there was about 1.2 million homebrewers in the U.S.
Right.
I think that's actually a little small.
I think it's probably on the low side too. When you start rolling in these kit numbers,
Yeah, I think it's closer to 2 million or 1.5 at least.
Right.
But say for the AHA, we've only, our membership has been growing. It's very healthy, but it's still only 40,000 people.
Right.
Out of 1.2 million or 1.5 million. So there's a huge amount of people out there that are making beer that aren't part of that larger community.
40,000 people here.
Right, exactly.
I don't know how many are here today, 2,800, something like that?
About 3,500.
Okay, 3,500, I'm sorry. 3,500 people here today.
Yep, exactly. So
we're seeing, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, to that question of how do you get them more involved, I think that the face of home brewing has to be a little bit more inclusive.
Yeah.
I think it has to stress a little bit more of a casual tone, that it's not intimidating. You don't have to be one of us to be part of the, to be part of the continuum. I think diversity is a big question.
Yeah.
It's largely, let's just be frank about it. It's largely been a white male dominated hobby, and you see that changing. You look around the conference today and you see that landscape is changing, and I think we need to push that a little bit further because I think bringing those people into the fold is
I've been happy to see a lot more women at the show than ever before, which is fantastic, and a lot of good things happening there. Well, Jake, you wanted to talk a little bit about ingredients and sort of the supply chain, how people get ingredients. I thought maybe I'd start by talking about the quality of ingredients and how that has improved over the years.
It really has. I mean, if you go all the way back to the pioneers of this hobby, whether it's, Charlie Papazian, Ken Grossman, Jim Cook, any of those, that have obviously gone on to do other things, they had very little ingredients to deal with.
Yeah, when I started back in '87, and it was a real challenge to get quality ingredients of any kind.
And now we're seeing over the past 5 years, there's a readily available. You've got malts from around the world, hops from around the world, multiple different yeast companies making really high quality products.
Top quality yeast, yeah.
Top quality yeast. The brewing aids are really great, and I think that's going to continue. Now, though, I think it's sort of up to the home brewer to, do a little more research.
Yeah.
And understand that I had someone come up to the table yesterday at the handcraft table and say, well, are pale malts all really just the same? and all 2 rows. My homebrew shop says they're just all the same, and I was like, oh my god! And so I went on this diatribe for about 15 minutes of no, absolutely not. You know, this 2 row is not the same as this 2 row. It's not to say that this is, you know, this is quality and this isn't, but there are differences.
Absolutely.
Differences in extract and enzyme conversion.
Even the English malts are different than the Belgian malts, are different than the American malts. Absolutely.
So I think, you know, one of the things we do at Handcraft, I think, is we're really trying to push education about those ingredients. You know, what is the difference between this malt and that malt? What is the home brewer looking for? And then give that information to the retailers as well, so they can educate their consumers. So you can make more informed decisions. And it's all, you know, the end game is better beer.
So what are some of the key issues in supplying and maintaining the quality of ingredients, you know, from end to end, from the supplier all the way to the brewer? Because that, you know, that was also a huge issue early on in home brewing, and it's improved dramatically over the years.
Absolutely. I think, first of all, you have to have really good relationships between the supplier, so the maltster, the hop grower, the hop broker, company that's producing the yeast, with, say, the distributor, to make sure that first line is taken care of. And then from there, you know, it's to the retailer to make sure the retailer is handling the ingredients properly, and then communicating that to the consumer about what they need to do, you know.
So, Jake, when we talk about keeping ingredients fresh, really, what are we talking about here?
Well, first of all, I think the supply chain starts with the manufacturer, the maltster, the hop grower, whatever that might be. They're pretty good about it. I mean, most of those, you know, that you see out in the market, they're very good about how they handle their products. And then it really goes to the distributor, someone like BSG or LD Carlson, something like that, you know, making sure that.
Thank you. That's okay. Got a little beer transfer there.
And then it goes to the shop. You know, the shop really needs to make sure it's handled well, and then of course hand it off to the consumer. You know, when we look at, you know, specific, you know, ingredient lines, let's take hops for example.
Right.
You know, you need to know the year that it was grown. You know, is this a 2010 Cascade or 2013? I mean, there's a vast difference there. So that's one of the first things. And then that, you know, cold storage is critically important. And then the packaging itself on the hops, you know, what was the process? Oxygen, and was it nitrogen flushed, and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, or is it in a little plastic bag?
Yep, exactly.
I still have some suppliers that, you know, we'll buy it in bulk in a little plastic bag and then hand it out in little baggies, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Exactly, and you have no idea, you know,
how long
all
it's
along
been on
the way
shelf.
It's been exactly. Malt, you know, malt's a little bit more stable. You know, if it's crushed, you've only got so much time to use it. Uncrushed malt's, you know, pretty stable. But again, you know, you want that, you know, in ambient temperatures. You don't want it going too high, too low. You don't want to be it for too long. So malt extract is a real challenge.
That's what I was wondering about malt extract. I know it used to be one of the biggest problems I had when I was an extract brewer was getting high quality malt extract. A lot of it was left, you know, on the shelf forever.
Right, and that, you know, one of the biggest challenges if you're going to make extract beer is that if you use very fresh extract, you're going to get a much better beer. But malt extract breaks down fairly quickly, especially liquid malt extract. So that's a challenge with shops, and that really comes from, you know, the wholesalers turn it pretty quickly, but the shops don't turn it as quickly.
The shops don't turn it that fast.
You can kind of tell. So, you know, and that really comes from the consumer needs to make those, you know, demands. They need to demand the freshest ingredients. They need to demand that's held, you know, it's handled properly, because that's where the shop is going to say, okay, you know, we need to do this. We need to make an effort. We need to invest. The good distributors, the good manufacturers or suppliers and the maltsters, whatever it might be, they get that. They get that.
Obviously.
So, yeah.
Well, we're starting to see some hops and grains in short supply again now.
Absolutely.
And why is that? What's driving that?
There's a few different reasons. I mean, when you're dealing with hops or malt, you're always dealing with an agricultural product. So you never, you know, there's always this kind of roll of the dice. You know, are the conditions going to be right for growing the barley? Are the conditions going to be right for growing these particular hops? You know, there were a lot of exciting hops coming out of Germany in the last couple of years. Some
Stan
aroma varieties.
Stan was on a minute ago talking about some of the new hop varieties coming
Polaris,
out of Germany.
Mandarina Bavaria. And really, they were ready to, this was going to be a year that they were really going to launch into the States, but they had a terrible growing season, just absolutely horrid.
Yeah.
And they didn't get anywhere near the yield they were looking for, so really it kind of didn't really happen to the level everybody wanted.
Maybe next year now, huh?
Exactly. So you have those things that always kind of factor in, but beyond that, it's demand. It's consumer demand, and right now that's being gobbled up by the American craft beer market.
Which is growing at 10, 15% a year.
Exactly. And then you have the global craft beer market.
Right.
Which, you know, is also putting a demand on this. And then something really, that we're really keeping an eye on is the macros, the big two. They're shifting their efforts and focus away from their traditional brands to more crafty beverages.
Yeah,
like
a lot of the
Blue
big
Moons or
brewers are
Shock
making
Tops.
craft beer. Sure.
So they're gonna start using these ingredients that they traditionally they never even touched.
Right.
So that's going to have an impact on it as well. So those are some factors. So I think that not being able to get particular types of malts for a while or particular types of hops, I think people should be prepared for that. And I think that's a reason why we start looking at some of these alternative ingredients that maybe they haven't used before.
Now, a lot of people don't realize, but homebrewers are really at the very end of the supply chain here, too. Tell us about how that kind of drives things.
Unfortunately, that's kind of the truth. You start with the craft brewers, and, of course, there's a spectrum there. And really, homebrewers kind of get to the end. One of the things that we try to do at BSG is to try to mitigate that and say, no, we need to make sure that, if there's a scarcity on a certain type of hop or a certain type of malt, a portion needs to be set aside for the home brewing market, because we see long term that those are the pro brewers of tomorrow. I mean, these are the people that really push everything. If home brewing dries up, everything kind of dries up. So
but the problem is, I guess, the big hop growers contract with the big brewers first. Right?
Sure.
And then they contract with the smaller brewers next, and then we're kind of left with whatever's left at the end, right?
So I think one of the things to battle against that is to it really comes down to, the maltster, the hop grower, that relationship with the distributor, the wholesaler. If the wholesaler is saying, no, we want these for these particular customers or this particular market, and you know what, we're going to work with you, whatever that means, whatever that arrangement is, to make sure that you set aside what you're doing and you invest in this future. Right. And that really comes down to the relationships. I mean, if you don't have those relationships, there's less of an incentive for that hop grower, that maltster, to make sure it's set aside.
So, I mean, you mentioned earlier BSG's got more of a focus now on ingredients.
Yep.
And what are some of the things you guys are doing to meet some of the future demand and some of the changing, evolving environment we talked about earlier?
Well, on the malt side, we're working with the maltsters that we represent, whether it's RAR here in the United States or it's, Simpsons or Weirmans or Patagonia, whoever it might be.
Yep.
We're trying to get them, better information, better forecasting from the craft beer and the homebrew market, so they can plan, to expand their capacity or do what they need to do, because their demand is increasing around the globe. It's not just us; it's around the world. So we're working on that with our suppliers. We're also trying to work with some of the maltsters that haven't traditionally been represented in the United States. Maltsters like Malting Company of Ireland. They make fantastic base malts, just absolutely fantastic base malts that a lot of people just don't know about yet. And then say maybe Patagonia down from Chile. They have some
it's
great
sort of
specialty
surprising,
malts.
but we here in the United States at least, we brew with a very small number of actual malt varieties.
Exactly, and we get, and
varieties.
I think that we've gotten used to using certain varieties, and we've gotten used to using certain maltsters. And if you get consistent results, I understand that you don't want to. You don't want to deviate from that. So what we're really trying to do is trying to introduce those products to say, hey, these are some alternatives, and they're really fantastic. So give them a try, and educating the retailers and the consumer about that. On the hop side, we've got some stuff I can't talk about quite yet, but some really, really, really big news, really exciting stuff coming down with hop processing, both on the craft beer side and on the homebrew side, that I think is going to be very significant, very good for homebrewers, very good for craft brewers. It's really exciting stuff. We'll have more to say about that later in the year.
Chris White dropped by a few minutes ago talking about they're doing some really innovative things with their yeast, and I think we're going to see some of that enter the homebrewing market. And
absolutely.
I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but
no, I mean,
some really great stuff happening. Really, neat, unique innovations.
Absolutely,
happening.
And that's what we need to do. I think, as whether it's a wholesaler or it's a manufacturer, supplier, we realize we need to be proactive about this. We can't just enjoy the wind at our back, but not react and not do something to sort of get out in front of it. And it's really exciting to see everybody sort of upping the game and raising the standard and raising the bar. It makes us all better.
Well, another question I had for you, we've been experiencing this period of unprecedented growth in the homebrewing world. It's been growing at basically 20% a year for the last 5 years, I think, or something like that. Just incredible growth in the market, even in a down economy. And how are we? How long can we continue with this?
Not much longer.
Not much longer.
I think we've seen I honestly think that the growth is. We're still going to see double-digit growth, for quite a few more years. But I think it is going to start to slow down. And I think that's basically, one of the things to state about some of those growth numbers coming out of the survey is that it's not really a snapshot of the industry overall.
Sure.
Because there's no way that we collect all the revenue data from the entire industry.
Yeah.
The BA can kind of calculate that on production.
Well, I mean, even you have a limited number of homebrew shops that participate.
Right.
Same thing, even on the survey that we sent out to members for AHA.
Right.
The AHA members, as you point out, are 40-something thousand out of perhaps as many as 1 million people, and of course, some of them are the most serious homebrewers.
Exactly. So, but I do think you're going to see things slow down a little bit. I think that the craziness that we've seen over the last 5 years is going to, taper off a little bit.
The insane growth.
Yeah, and I think, part of that is that you have a lot more shops. You
Right.
have a lot more shops now than we did even 2 years ago. And I think that's a good thing for the home brewer,
Yeah.
If you can, if you've got a shop down the street, that's fantastic.
More access
that is
to them,
fantastic. Absolutely. So I think that's a good thing overall, but we're going to see that growth spread out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to enjoy a little bit more. So, and then I think, we've talked about this before, in a down economy during the recession, homebrewing just took off.
It did. It really took off.
And
right around 2008.
Exactly.
Actually.
And then all of a sudden you have the economy kind of turning around. Now people have a little bit more, disposable income, but they've got less time.
Yeah.
And then you have a rise in craft beer where, you can get craft beer pretty much anywhere. You got a tap room down the street.
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of varieties in my local supermarket,
Exactly.
and that wasn't the case even a few years ago.
So now the proposition becomes that home brewer that was maybe brewing, 10 times a year, there's going to be a few times now where they're like, really, I don't have the time to do it. Or I've got enough money, I'm just going to go down to the tap room down the street.
Yeah.
So I think you have all these different factors going on that are going to play into it. But I think most people in the industry get this. They think that, it's a net positive, but if you were in the game for the last 5 years, it was awesome.
It was very nice.
And it was a good way to get to to establish a baseline. Now it's getting to a more realistic.
Yeah, I feel very lucky to be able to do this full time now,
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Jake, you're also on the AHA governing committee. And
Correct.
what are some of the major issues that the governing committee is facing right now? What are some of the things that you're working?
Well, just yesterday we had our annual meeting. We do it every Wednesday during NHC. We all get together, the AHA staff, some BA staff.
Right.
It's about a 5-hour meeting. Typically the meeting is focused on just covering the major topics, like what do we need to deal with, what are the things we need to focus on in the coming year, and give advice to Gary and his staff. Yesterday we did a futuring session, which we maybe do every 4 or 5 years.
And is that like a strategic kind of thing?
Yep, strategic futuring session. We'll do a SWOT analysis, and then out of that we'll kind of identify the major objectives moving forward. And we try to stay away from, topics like the conference and the competition that are those things are evergreen. We're always dealing with those.
Those are always every year.
They're always there. So really some of the things we identified were, one, communication. We need to do a better job of communicating with our members, communicating with those non-members to try to get them into the fold, communicating with the media, just communication in general. So that's sort of an overarching objective, and I think
always a challenge.
Always a challenge. Diversity. We want more diversity within our membership. We want to see more diversity within the home brewing hobby. So, that's a focus moving forward.
Fantastic.
International. What is the role of the International Homebrewing Committee?
I had Stan on a few minutes ago, and of course people will probably catch that podcast first. But he was talking about brewing around the world and just how craft brewing and home brewing is really exploding all around the world.
And they, by and large, those people from around the world, they look to the BA, they look to the AHA to see, how do you guys do things? How do you run events? How do you get homebrewers and craft brewers organized? So I think there's an opportunity there for us to have potentially to have a global presence versus just a presence in the U.S. But that's a stretch objective.
Well, time.
We do need to do a lot of research there. And then the last one would be member benefits. We need to, identify where we can bring more benefit to our members, existing members, but then, what kind of benefits would attract those, million other homebrewers?
No, we were talking about earlier, the casual homebrewer, a person that might just brew a batch or two a year kind of thing.
Yeah, how can we make ourselves more relevant to them and help them? So
Jake, have you been enjoying this year's conference? What's some of your favorite parts so far?
Well, one of the things I really have enjoyed with this one in particular is, this expo hall. Yeah, it's the biggest we've ever seen.
It is huge.
By a long shot.
It is amazing.
A little bit over 70 exhibitors. I think it's great to see that kind of atmosphere and that sort of a little bit more of a trade show atmosphere. I think it's good for all the retailers and the vendors that are here, but it's also great for our membership to see this. I really do like you know, again, this goes back to the communication thing. You know, we got rid of Pro Brewers Night, and what we did is we then took those pro breweries and we're dispersing them throughout the conference.
Yeah.
You know, so if you walk around the exhibition hall here, you'll see New Holland and Lagunitas.
Right across the way there, yeah.
Exactly, and I like that. So it's bringing that tie together like craft beer and home brewing and making it one, not making it so separate.
Fantastic.
And then the World Cup matches, they're a nice diversion.
Well, you know.
When I need to go back and just kill. So that's been I always like every 4 years the two line up, and that's kind of a nice treat.
It's enjoyable, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, what's talk for a minute about BSG and what you're doing at BSG now. I know you made a transition, got a year and a half ago now.
Yeah, been there for about a year. Deal in marketing, so I do mostly in marketing for the entire company.
Yeah,
run that and do a lot of traveling for work. You know, whether it's visiting suppliers around the world or it's coming to trade shows and whatnot. So I can't complain. It's a fantastic company. We're doing fantastic things. Got the greatest coworkers in the world, so super happy there. And to have a view of the industry as a whole, not just craft beer and not just home brewing, but the two, and see where those two things intersect has been really cool.
Yeah, great. Well, Jake, thank you so much
absolutely.
for being on the show.
Thanks
I really appreciate you being here and taking the time out. I know you're very busy this week. You're on the governing committee. You're running around like crazy, but thank you for spending a few minutes with us. And
my pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Again, Mr. Jake Keeler, currently working with BSG Group and, of course, a member of the AHA governing committee.
Cheers.
Thanks. Actually, here.
Yeah, say that properly. Cheers.
Thank you to Mr. Jake Keeler for joining me at the National Homebrew Convention. And thanks also to our sponsors this week, Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine at beerandbrewing.com. Please do take advantage of their 20% discount for our listeners by using the offer code BeerSmith when you subscribe to the new magazine at beerandbrewing.com. And also the American Homebrewers Association forum at homebrewersassociation.org/forum. Join over 22,000 fellow homebrewers for free online beer discussion today. And finally, my new video with John Palmer, How to Brew with Malt Extract, which makes a great gift for a friend trying to get into homebrewing. You can find that new DVD at beersmith.com/DVD. Again, beersmith.com/DVD. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great brewing week.